So hello to everybody that's going to be watching this recording. Welcome. This is our HIM Fertility webinar, where we're going to be looking at a man's guide to surviving the world of fertility. This is all part of National Fertility Awareness Week 2024, and this year's theme is Fertility in Mind. So I'm Andy Baines-Vosper, Fertility Network UK ambassador, and I also host the monthly HIM Fertility Male Support Group. Joining me today for this conversation is we've got Anthony and we've got Yiannis. I'm going to let Anthony and Yiannis introduce themselves properly in a second to make sure that I don't get anything wrong and do them justice. And we're going to be talking throughout this webinar all things men and fertility. So as I said at the start, this is very much a man's guide to surviving fertility. Three men that have all been through various things around their fertility journeys. Just to start it off, to sort of kick it off, there are some furry friends in the audience. So we have some dogs behind us, behind our screens. So if you do see us put ourselves on mute throughout this, you know why. So I'm going to hand over now and let other people talk. So first, Anthony, you're right to hand over to you.
Sure thing. Thank you. Good to be here. And just to let everyone know, I am a registered psychotherapist, have been for over 20 years, and I work both independently for myself and with a number of different fertility clinics, both in the UK and overseas. I guess what I do is on the more clinical side and fertility side, I support anybody that's coming through for fertility checkups to check do a semen analysis, do AMH tests or blood tests or follicle counts on the female side, checking fertility just to check, or if people have been trying to conceive and wondering why things aren't working out. So I help people kind of process the information that might be coming through and work with them to discuss what options they feel most comfortable with. That might be to go ahead with fertility treatment. It might be not to. It might be to explore the various different paths that might be presented to them. I work with people where sadly there's been bad news that have come through from any of the results. And of course, sadly, if there's been any pregnancy loss or baby loss. On the other side of things, I work with people who come into clinics to help. So I work with egg donors, sperm donors, embryo donors, surrogates. So across the whole fertility journey, world, universe. The other side of my working life, I do a lot of work around grief, loss, trauma. That's my area. That's what led me into fertility work. I was a psychotherapist. I'd gone through fertility treatment myself, and I was a grief counsellor. And my partner actually said, "Why don't you combine everything and support other people like us who are going through this?" And here I am, kind of all these years later, doing as best I can to support everybody. So that's my kind of working life, is every day meeting lots and lots of interesting people, hearing lots and lots of stories and gaining lots of different perspectives, doing whatever I can to help support. And nowadays, yeah, I also do these sorts of things: talking, chatting, sharing, campaigning, writing, you name it. I want to try and help educate and get the message out there. So it's great to be here with you guys.
Thank you, Anthony. And that is exactly why I don't introduce people, because wow, that is a lot there, and really appreciate you taking part today and being part of our group of men talking together. Look at that. Yiannis, hand over to you for your introduction.
Thanks for having me on here. So I'm Yiannis. I compete for Great Britain in triathlon. It's not my job. People think it's my job, but it's not. I work full time for the NHS as a performance analyst. So you probably gather, I analyse a lot of data, and therefore I also analyse my own data when I'm training. I've recently come back from a successful trip in Ptolemaios with the British team. I came 13th overall in my age group in the sprint distance race, and we came in the mixed relay came back away with a silver medal. So that's what we've been up to recently. So it was a very successful trip. I battled with back in 2020, just where we went into COVID. I got 2021. I got redeployed at work and went into a kitchen. Worked in the kitchen ward, a skill that I've never had. I mean, I don't cook, so. And where this is going, I say, ended up me having later on, because I saw people, not nice things happening to people, and back then I didn't know what was going on with COVID. I ended up getting mental health issues, and at the same time we were trying for children, and it's been 5 years, quite a draining journey, and from there in 2023 we just started the IVF process, because it takes years to get through, and we were going through it all when we started, and I had mental health issues back then, and that's when I decided to seek help. I didn't enjoy my hobby, training stuff, and I took a step back from sport, and obviously that's one thing that helps your mental health. So that's a bit of a nutshell really of what how I got onto the IVF journey, and I opened up, me and my wife opened up a couple of years ago, social media, and we were blown away about how many people were going through IVF, how many people were sending me messages and saying they're going through it at the moment. I mean, family members that did not open up. It was just it was quite shocking really that no one actually did. By me coming out, and by us both coming out and explaining our journey and stuff, it's helped a lot of people, and that's how I've come to here.
Thank you. Again, another incredible and difficult journey as well, by the sounds of things. And you say silver medal as well recently.
Yeah, so we got
congratulations.
Thank you very much.
That's fantastic, and again, massive thank you for joining us, and also your involvement with HIM Fertility as well.
Yeah, so I'm an ambassador for them, doing talks like this. I've been on the TV for ITN News, raising the awareness, and doing some other various stuff with them, just to help out and get it, just to raise the awareness, and try and tell people they're not alone, and there's always someone to talk to about it, and there's people going through it. There's a lot of people going through it.
Thank you, and thank you both for sort of talking through your stories. And I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because you've got three men on this call, all with very, very different experiences, all with very different stories. And yeah, I think this is hopefully how we can start to get conversations started. I think it was interesting when we sort of had our pre-recording chat at the start. We were talking a bit about sort of the male mind, and how actually there was some sort of, even when it comes to doing something like this, there were anxieties and nerves, and I'm sure I won't speak for everybody else, and that you all sort of talk about how you felt, but I know I was feeling nervous and do things like this, but yet it's easy to say that we're fine and we're okay, and the irony of what we're here to talk about, knowing that as men we're also very much trying to encourage people to talk and sort of explain the journeys and the sort of the thing behind the fertility side of things, whereas we're still in that very much that male mindset. No, we're fine, we're good. I don't know if anybody's got any thoughts on that one to sort of kick off the conversation about that, that pre-chat we were having, that we're fine when actually we weren't necessarily fine.
It's just easy to say, isn't it? It's easy to say to someone, if someone says, how you doing? You say, yeah, good, thanks. Just easy, isn't it? When actually, I mean, I've been through it quite a lot. I mean, I turned up to, we discussed it earlier, but in 2003 turned up to a complete, 2023, complete and a mess really. Anxiety, mental health. I was really struggling, and people at the race, for example, it was a Aquathlon Championships, and they were saying to me, "Oh, how are you?" and stuff. And I was saying, "Oh, I'm good, thanks." But I wasn't. And it's like, how do you start that conversation? How do you say like, "Oh, no, I'm not good. I'm not." It's always difficult. You know, to start it. I mean, I don't know how you two find it, but I always find if someone does say something, it's just easy to say, yeah, I'm all right. And yeah, when you're not, you just like, maybe I don't know, you're just anxious about it. You don't know how they're going to react. It's the unknown, isn't
It is. And yeah, you're right. We were talking earlier, we're talking now again about it. And I'm thinking about how when I support people, because they say they're fine, and I say, you don't look fine. Or sometimes people actually go, hi, and then they burst into tears, and it's a relief. And I was thinking, you know, we say, yeah, I'm fine, because for me anyway, I don't want somebody to start saying, do this, trying to fix things, or, you know, because I've already thought about all of that. And actually, probably what I want is somebody to go, yeah, I'm here for you. That's all. You know, you don't have to tell me what's going on. You don't have to tell me how rubbish it is or how worried you are, but just I'm on your side. I'm in your corner. And maybe that, just knowing that someone's there, and somebody might not even get what you're going through because they can't, but they know that you're stressed, or you're nervous, or you're worried, or you need just somebody there, yeah, in your camp. That maybe that, but not many people do that. Everyone, especially blokes are fixers, aren't they? Or we like to fix, and we can be our own worst enemy to our partners, of course. Where we try and, you know, we try and kind of give them tips on how to manage their fears, or it'll be okay, don't worry about it, you know, everything will be okay tomorrow, you'll see. It's like, how can you be sure? You know.
I think that's some really interesting points there, isn't it? And I think this is where, when we sort of talk about the whole, I think, the male fertility journey, I mean, the topic today is, you know, sort of surviving, and how we sort of survive the world of fertility. And a lot of the time, you know, as I said, when we have our support groups, and when we talk to men about, especially when it comes to fertility, but other things in life as well, sometimes you just want people to be there with you. And I think you said that really, really nicely there, Anthony, is you just want people to be there alongside you. And unfortunately, you know, and I think it's probably good that we sort of talk about how we felt at the start of our fertility journeys. But, you know, men are fixers. We do want to try and fix things. And with something like that, it's a lot of the process is outside of our control, which can be a really, really difficult thing. And one of the things I hear most about, you know, in some of our meetings and in other forums is when you sort of do talk to people, what you don't want is things like platitudes and, oh, everything's going to be okay, and, you know, that kind of, you know, because we don't know that. We don't know that everything's going to be okay. You know, we can't guarantee that everything is. You know, what is okay. You know, so yeah, I think it's really interesting, isn't it, in terms of sort of that what goes on for everyone when we're going through this, and kind of the support we do actually need. Which we start with, you know, sort of the start of the journey, then finding out and how we cope with that, and some of the things that we might want people to know about either our journeys or the start of the process, people that might be there.
Sure. Two things just spring to mind very quickly. One is often this can be very private and personal, whether to us or to our partner, of course. So it's always worth speaking. If you've got a partner and you're going through this together, if you are as a couple, it's chatting between you to make sure that you're both aligned, because often I find one partner might be very open and the other partner might not be, and it's coming to an agreement around that. And the other thing, something, Yiannis, that you mentioned about, sometimes if you're very lucky, life is just kind of beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Everything's going very, very well. And then you're unable to conceive, or something happens and you discover there's a fertility issue. And then that's the one thing that you're looking at, and the one thing that's tainted or difficult in life. Other times It could be that there are many other things going on at the same time. Of course, when it was COVID, there was COVID going on. People lost their jobs at the same time. People were losing loved ones at the same time. And then there was a diagnosis of fertility as well on top. Or so you could be trying to juggle many different things all at the same time. And that can be, I think what you're saying, and it's like there is a kind of the straw that breaks the camel's back. And then,
well, it's like I suppose if you like a cat, for example, you think about like you start. Like, I had quite a few things that led to it, and they were like my mum was ill, for example, and I had people picking on me at my running club at the time. And what happened was it's like a can of Coke. Like you could be dealing with a few other bits, but then when it's shaken and it's full, it explodes, doesn't it? So and that's the thing. Yeah, it can just yeah, you're dealing with a lot of things all at once, and then yeah, it leads, as you said, it can be really really good all of a sudden, and then all of a sudden you're down the other end.
yeah, and it shows how important it is where possible to try and manage each thing when it's happening, rather than I'll get round to that later, because, and often we are busy, you know, I can't deal with that now because I've got to keep going, or I've got to deal with this or this or this. But then the can or the bottle of Coke gets shaken more and more and more until finally it just explodes. And you know, yeah, it's challenging.
I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think, again, you know, you're both so right. When we talk about fertility and sort of surviving the world of fertility, it's not just fertility. We're not just surviving the world of fertility. And so, you know, going back to what I'm saying about sort of when people say, oh, look, it'll be all right, and you'll get through this, and you know, things, yeah. I think it can be that people focus on the fertility side of what you're going through, and what they don't see behind it all is the financial impact that it's having, the work impact that it's having, the social life impact that it's having, the relationship impact that it's having. And so when people say, you know, things will be all right, or, you know, I think, will they? Will they? You know, because they don't see I think fertility, in my experience anyway, had such an impact on nearly every aspect of life. And it's a case of, so what part is going to be okay then? Is it that, you know, the financial side's going to be okay, and all of a sudden we're going to, you know, have the money that's going to be needed potentially to take us through the next phase of whatever we're going through? Is it our relationship's going to be okay? Is it that the friends that we're potentially losing because of how we feel when we're seeing other people become pregnant, and sort of, you know, we feel we're withdrawing? Is that side of life going to, you know, which part of this ripple effect in life is actually going to be okay?
But it's also like people aren't aware of like the fertility like issues, or some people just oblivious to it. Like for example, I me and my wife, we were met up with people, and we just had the third failed attempt in IVF, and obviously it was devastating. And but all they wanted to talk about, they brushed it off and talked about their newborn, and and that is devastating, because like you think to yourself, well, you just brushed off something that we always, you know, wanted, and it's devastating. And then you've just come across with your newborn, and you're now talking about that completely. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, but it's like you've just brushed off what a major life thing, part of my life, you know, our lives, with something that we wanted. You know what I mean? It's so some people just oblivious to it, and there's some people that would say, well, I don't know, I don't understand the process or what you've gone through, can you tell me? And that's another aspect. Like it's really good because and then they ask you questions and stuff, and so I think it's just, I don't think people are aware of how fertility is no fault of anyone. It's just that they are not aware of how common it is, and unfortunately that's where we get all, you know, we don't know what we're doing, or don't know how to talk to people about it.
Yeah, and you know, you make so many good points there. The first is loss. You know, we're going through, you know, lost opportunity, lost time, loss of relationships potentially, because yeah, why are you going to want to spend any more time around these people that, you know, have brushed off your vulnerability? You've been really open, and then they've kind of start talking about their newborn, or start scrolling through phones and pictures after look at this, look at this, look at this. And again, this is what's most important for them. So, you know, I remember being at, yeah, I think we were at some party, we were going through IVF. We decided not to share it with people. We thought, you know, we're just going to keep this quiet, at least amongst our peers. And one chap was drunk and said to my wife, "Why haven't you got any kids yet?" You know, and like, well, you know, you make your excuse, don't you? We're getting on with our careers or whatever it was. It was a long time ago now. And they turned around and said, "You're so selfish. You know, our 2 kids are great, and we're doing our bit for society. Can't believe how," obviously we had to leave the party. My wife was in tears. But yeah, we had made a choice not to share. So people didn't know, even though that was a bit an outlandish thing for anybody to be saying, a lot insensitive. But you don't know what's going to come around the corner. And there you are as a bloke trying to protect your missus or your partner. It's so difficult, isn't it? And yeah, you said it, Andy, yeah, we found our social life and our social crowd just shrink, because even when we did start to share it, people like yourself were saying, Yiannis, would like, "Oh, that's, you know, sorry to hear that. Let me tell you about our kids." Oh my God, you know, please. So,
Yeah. Or a thing I hear quite a lot as well, and I remember hearing it when we were sort of going through it, is, you know, people will try and shed light on it and be, you know, you don't want the early mornings anyway, or you don't want the sleepless nights, or, yeah, you know, think yourself lucky that you haven't got to go through what we're going through with the nappy,
Yeah.
all of this. And it's almost, and again, you know, I think sometimes people don't know what to say, so they try and bring a bit of humor into it and try and ease the tension. But you know, and I think especially men, I think it's sometimes assumed, and you know, not generalizing, but I think it's sometimes assumed that we might not want it quite as much as our partners do. And so therefore we'll get our bloke mates saying, "Oh, yeah, consider yourself lucky, I haven't got to go through all of this, that, and the other," when actually we would give anything in the world to be going through that and to be being woken up and having to do the nighttime, you know, all of that kind of stuff. But I think sometimes it's assumed that, you know, it's blokes, yeah, you don't want to be going through that anyway. You consider yourself lucky, when actually no. It's absolutely eating me up inside, and I just want to cry and scream and hit something, and, you know, get all of these anger and all of this out somehow, but I don't know how. So yeah, I find that's an interesting one, especially the whole idea that we might not want it quite as much as our partners.
Yeah, I mean, I've certainly experienced what you've experienced. I mean, I've had people, yeah, say, when you're going to have kids, you know, and you kept it quiet. That's a bit probably why we've opened up more, so people are aware of it. But yeah, it's just, I think personally, people are just not aware of it and just don't know how to, react to it. And I also think as well, there's a lot of people that actually think it's not a big deal. Like, I mean, I've had a few people, they think just, I mean, seeing Mel go through grueling, like, you know, I think she took our last cycle, 271 different 271 medications in total. I mean, seeing her injecting herself, like, you know, twice a day. People don't realize that, and they just think it's a few injections. And I was the same when I first went through the first. My sister had a successful IVF, like first time, and I just thought, oh yeah, just have a few injections and it's that easy. And it's only when you're actually on the actual actually on the actual journey, you know how draining and how, like, what a struggle it can be.
yeah, there's so much uncertainty with it. I always say to people, can be a lot more challenging than the doctors will make out, or that your friends, because everyone knows someone, let's face it, they went to Dr. so-and-so or someone else who, they know of a friend, speak to them, you got to see this practice or whatever. But it is a lot more grueling. No one tells you that how your partner might react to the meds. No one tells you that you're not going to be able to book things, plan things, schedule things, because you might be going in treatment, coming out of treatment, grieving for the loss that it hasn't worked, trying to save money because you can't even afford to go and do anything. And of course, if it's you as a man who's possibly the one who's gone in and had that diagnosis result come back, and it's kind of, you've got, low sperm, low motility, no sperm, or they're going to have to do further tests, or you've got a chromosomal issue or something. Suddenly it's like your world comes crashing down. What do you mean? What does this mean? Can I not have children? Am I putting my partner now all through all of this? Just the guilt, the fear, the worry, the not knowing, suddenly how can the world be turned upside down in such a way? And yet I need to try and remain confident and upbeat, and I don't know, protect my partner, all sorts of things. And of course, if you have been diagnosed with something, do you tell your family? If you've got brothers, do you tell your brothers to go and get tested? There's so many things coming at you at a million miles an hour. It's like, where do you start? And often, I guess we'll just have those tests and be going back into work later that day. Our mind's spinning. We might even, I know people that have gone in to present meetings and stuff, and their brain is certainly not where it needs to be, of course. It's really hard.
It's incredibly overwhelming, isn't it? I think from the minute you first, I mean, I suppose it's not even the minute you first find out, you've got the part before where you might be trying and, unaware that there's any difficulties, and then the time goes on and, you start to have those sort of, well, do we need to get looked at? Do we need to sort of investigate further? And then from the minute you find out, it's just overwhelming, isn't it? Because especially, I think for men as well, we're not the most forthcoming at going to see our GPs and booking appointments and things like that. We tend to be, we're fine. We'll sort of limp on with whatever we've got going on, until we're sort of badgered into actually making that appointment. Sometimes, I know with my wife anyway. So then all of a sudden, as you quite rightly said, the world's turned upside down. All of a sudden, you've got appointments, you've got tests, you've got this, that, and the other, and it's I think overwhelming, for me is the biggest word there, because you're met with a lot of jargon, a lot of things that up until that moment you found out that you might have difficulties, probably never even considered, and then your whole life is turned upside down. I think it's often forgotten about just that impact. And then, as you said there, I don't know, and I'll leave it for you both, but how you felt seeing your partners going through, as you said there, Yiannis, the tests and the medication and that sort of process brings with it a lot of really difficult feelings, I think, for men as well, especially when you've got that protective nature.
Yeah, I mean, the word to describe it, I suppose, is horrible. It's not anything that you would want anyone to go through. I mean, obviously, the men don't get as bad as the ladies, but they still get quite bad. You have to deal with the emotions, draining, mental health, and seeing all your partners just like struggling with it. I mean, Mel was quite good. She did when we had our fourth attempt was successful, and she put a video up on Instagram which I shared, and she put how all from day one when we were in the clinic, the injections, stuff like that, and the amount of people that come back and just say like, wow, I didn't realize you had to go through all that and stuff. Again, it goes back to what I said. People just aren't aware of it. But yeah, it's just a really draining process mentally and physically, like for both of you. But it's not nice to see. Like for me, I didn't like watching needles being injected all the time, because it's not natural seeing that, and all the medications stacking up and seeing that around the house. It's just really difficult. But you've got to have, at the same time, you've got to have hope, and you've got to stay positive. I mean, the first IVF cycle we had no clue what was going on. We just got thrown like the deep end, really. Turned up and it didn't work. We were like, one at the time, the first attempt, we wasn't, because we were still finding our feet to know what happened and what was happening. And when we phoned up the clinic, said, "Oh, do we have another time with the NHS funding we had at the time? What happens like that?" And luckily, we did. We didn't have the fresh fresh cycles didn't work, so we didn't have any to freeze. It was only after the second time it didn't work. It was when it really hit hard, because you're like, well, actually this might not actually work. And it goes back to what I said to you earlier on. I was saying that, like, my sister, she had it first time and I just thought, oh yeah, it just worked quite easily. But yeah, it's just a very draining process, and it's just not nice to see.
Yeah, it really isn't nice at all. I think it's really important to be involved if you can. You know, I really love it when I see in front of me the couple. Equally, I appreciate when it's just a bloke sitting in front of me or just a female sitting in front of me. But, you know, if maybe at the start of the whole process, seeing a couple sat in front of me, both curious, or I've supported where even if it's one or the other has needed more support than the other, they're both there because they're in this together and they're supporting each other. I think it's really important if couples, where possible, can go to each and every appointment at the clinic together, and to be there to talk about it afterwards, to support one another, so that you're in this together. Because I hear from like a lot of women, they'll say, you know, if my partner doesn't even know when the next appointment is, or I'm left to organize everything. Equally and conversely, I see blokes organizing everything, which is, you know, that again, it's their way of trying to take control, I guess, and that the practical side of us getting stuck in and involved and trying to make a bit of a difference. But yeah, back to your point, it's really not nice at all seeing your partner go through all the medications. In my day, this is going back some time, you know, I was actually allowed in for the whole egg collection process, and seeing your wife being sedated in front of you and going under, or screaming in pain because the sedation's not working as they're extracting eggs. I'm probably still a bit traumatized from that, and the bleeding and stuff. So that, you know, I think the one, you do survive it, you do come out of it, you're changed as a result. And I was thinking that right at the start with the three of us here, you know, there's probably plenty of things we do have in common besides gender, and the fact that we've gone through all in our own ways fertility treatment. We've all had different outcomes, but we're all doing work somewhat involved, some of it voluntary, some of it paid, some of it a bit of both, and some capacity to help others. That there's no end of stream of people behind us, and there's a lot of people in front of us as well, you know. So it's good to know that whatever we say can help, can make a difference, and maybe other people can continue to carry the baton as well.
It's such a good point, isn't it? Because I think going through the fertility journey can feel like such a lonely place. And I think especially for us men, you know, we might not necessarily talk as much as we should. And I think might not know who to talk to, where to go, what to do. And as you said, sort of going through it, you then, as you said, the three of us having that sort of different experiences, but ultimately going through what we've been through, you realize how important it is to try and encourage these conversations, to try and make sure that there isn't any men out there that are, sort of feeling isolated, alone, and that they haven't got that support because, I know I felt it, and I know that a lot of men do. But ultimately, we speak to men a lot who are at that point where sometimes they just don't think they can keep going with it anymore. And that's not just the journey, but sometimes that's life as well. It's that impactful and on our core being, our, as we said, all of these emotions going on at once, the anger, the grief, the guilt, even things like envy, and it's just such a huge emotional toll that it can take on us. And not just us as men, but the people going through it. And I think that's why we sort of said that when we were sort of looking at pulling this together, wasn't it? In terms of we were sort of talking about what would we call this? What would we call this webinar, this conversation, and sort of wanted to do something sort of in a positive way. But ultimately, that's where we came up with that sort of surviving the world of fertility, because that's how it can feel sometimes, is that we're surviving through that journey. And it can be so difficult. So knowing that there's other people out there that can't necessarily help, that can't, but we can just, as you said at the beginning, to just be there next to each other and know that we're supporting each other, I think is huge for any men going through that at the moment.
That's it, really. But to actually have like people knowing that you're not just you going through it. There's others, and if you can speak out, it will help. But I think when I started it, I didn't realise how, like, is it something like 1 in 2 people? I think the Fertility Network say. And yeah, I didn't know anything about it. And I mean, recently for the Fertility Network, I got interviewed by ITN News, and one of my close friends sent me a message and said, he said, "Oh, I'm really proud of you for opening up and doing it." But what actually stood out was the fact that he said there's going to be people seeing that and going to say he's had problems, it's going to be okay, and he said it would help a load of people. And that's the thing, just knowing that you're not alone, even if you don't speak out.
Yeah, and I always think there's so many different sides to all of this. It's a never-ending cube. But the two main things for me is for men in particular, if a man has been diagnosed with something himself and is having to go through that whole process of more diagnostics, more tests. I've met men who have gone through like 2 years of tests, nutrition, diet, more tests every 3 to 4 to 6 months to retest, trying every single thing they can, hoping that they can either improve the quality of their sperm at some level, or do something to get some healthy sperm rather than go down a sperm donor route. Others will just say, look, not doing any of that, sperm donor's fine. So there's the male journey of their own fertility, and then there's kind of when it's either unexplained or undiagnosed. There's no reason why you shouldn't be able to get pregnant, but you're clearly not. But so we'll do IVF together, or it might be female factor at some level. So that I find if there's a man who's coming in who's going through his own diagnosis, there's a different level of support that's required there at that level and at that time, versus say somebody who's coming in as a couple where they're going through maybe it's unexplained fertility. Because often if it's a man and it's their own diet, they're going through that, they're going through all the other stuff in life, and sadly that's probably, Andy, where your work Samaritan wise comes in as well. There's a lot of men that I'll ask them, how is this really impacting you? Where are you taking this to? Who else knows the depths of what you're feeling? How low are you actually getting? And I have to be blatant and ask the question, how many times have you actually thought about ending your life? And the majority of men are so brutally honest, and they'll say that, I have, I'm not sure I would do it, but I have certainly thought about it, or I've thought about, or I have told my partner to leave me and to find somebody else. Or I don't know if I could go through life, or what's everyone else. All these thoughts, and that takes us into just a wonderful conversation to support them. And often it's the first time they've been able to say something like that, and it's a massive weight off their shoulders. But so many men, I can't believe how many men are honest, but do feel these things, the impact it has on us, you know.
I think it's such a difficult topic, isn't it? And I think, to be honest with you, that is a whole topic we could probably spend a very long time discussing as well, because it's something that we don't talk about enough, I don't think. And you know, I think we know the risk to men, especially when it comes to, you know, when we talk about the topic of suicide and the topic of the statistics, it's around about 75%, give or take, are all male. And this has such, when we talk about fertility in that kind of context, and as we said at the start, it's not just the reproductive side that we talk about when it comes to fertility. It's that knock-on effect it has to every aspect of our life, and the feelings of worthlessness, guilt, shame, isolation, all of that starts to build up and build up. And you're exactly right. You know, when we finally are able to express the fact that, yes, that is how we're feeling, that is exactly how we're feeling, we're not sure if we can keep going on feeling like this, we're not sure if we can keep living like this, you know, even down to the point, as you quite rightly said there, about would our partners be better off without us? You know, questions like that, whether it's leaving us or whether us not being here anymore would be better for them, so then they can move on and start their life again with, you know, with somebody else that might be able to bear children in you know, whatever context. It brings to light the severity of the situation and exactly how we can feel. And that's not including, and as you, I can't remember, sorry, which one you said at the beginning, but that's not including all the other things that are going on in life, notwithstanding the things affected by the fertility journey and all these other things. It's everything else that's going on in life as well. And you know, that analogy of the weight on your shoulders, it is huge. And there's a saying that is and I think it was by a gentleman called Matt Haig, but I'm not 100% sure, but we'll credit it, that suicide is the final collapse under an unbearable weight. And, you know, when we talk about a subject like this and fertility and the weight of it, that's, you know, unfortunately, it can leave us feeling like we just don't want to be here anymore. But again, definitely a subject I think that we could talk about for a long time. But I think it's right that we do mention things like that, because there's probably a lot of men that are watching this right now, feeling in that exact way. And I think by talking about it, we give them permission to know that, you know, it's that we're here, that you're not alone in those thoughts, and that there are people there for you, and that, you know, we've all been through it, and we've all felt in some way or another in various different states, and that we're here. But yeah, no, as I said, I think that's definitely one for we could do a whole another hour on that one, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think you know, we're reaching the end of our hour, aren't we? Time sometimes, and I guess you have this in your training, yeah, and this time sometimes you feel you've got loads of it, other times it speeds up and it's like, where's it gone? And other times it's like slows down and you're stuck in animated suspension, whatever.
Just like flies. I mean, going back to like the whole IVF journey, I mean, looking back, it started like towards the end of 2021, I think, when we started our process, and how it's flown by. But once you're in that like cycle, and that, you know, that 2 week wait, for example, like if you get to that stage, it feels like forever. The 2 weeks feels forever, but everything else feels like it's a blur, and it's gone really quickly. Just yeah, time is funny.
And sometimes it can be very unfunny.
Well, yeah.
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 Yeah, I think it's I think that's one of the worst parts, isn't it, of this whole process as well, is the time in between things, that helplessness, that not being having things out of your control, having to wait for appointments, having to, like you said there, Yanis, that sort of 2 week bit, there's there's so I think people don't realize until you're sort of going through it is how much time can affect people as part of the process, and even that can be really, really difficult.
Yeah, even like after the 2 weeks, if it's successful, you've got then the scan, haven't you, afterwards?
Mm.
And that again, that's waiting, and then it's like it's never ending, because like you have the scan at the clinic, and then you have the 10, maybe a 10-week scan, and you got a 12-week scan. Keep it's just never ending, just builds up and just build. Whereas like it's gone quick, and then all of a sudden it just goes really slowly, like and all the emotions build up, and all the anxiety, it just all builds up.
Yeah. Being the mo It's funny because sometimes I give analogy of kind of athletics. So you'll be familiar with this, Yiannis and Andy. Why not?
Oh, thanks for including me on that.
Because a lot of athletes, they train, of course, because that's you've got to train to get to where you want to get to. And then there's the recovery time as well, and there's the space in between, which is where the muscles are all repairing themselves.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think the same about the breath. We can take a breath in because we need that to bring in oxygen, and then we breathe out because we need to get rid of the carbon dioxide and other stuff that we don't want to hold in. But it's the bit in between of the breath that actually is the nutrients that's healing our body. And
Yeah,
maybe that's what we need to look at.
yeah. I mean, I totally agree with you. I have this conversation with people I train, all sorts of athletes, time and time again. Like people don't take rest days, for example. Rest days is where you make all the gains, recover.
Yeah.
And that's one of the big ones. Another one is that like end of season, runners seem to be the worst. They don't have a break after anything. They just carry on running. They obviously they might get injured, or they say, "Oh, I had a break because I was injured." But when I say to people, like I say, have 2 weeks off, then come back slowly and build into it, and you'll be better next year, faster. They just horrified. It's just but it's that bit, as you say, in between that probably helps you, not only recover mentally as well, and it's what you want. Like I always find, sidetracking a little bit onto the sport thing. I always find like when I have a break, I'm physically don't want a break, but when I have a break, I know I need it, and then all of a sudden, after a few days, I want to get back on it, and like for the rest of the time I'm off, I'm like, oh yes, I can't wait to get back on it, and slowly build up, and you feel really refreshed and like regenerated, I suppose. So it's something like that. I mean, I've had conversations with GB athletes about they're giving up because they've not had recovery or mentally drained and stuff. And yeah, it's important to have that in between. So it's part of life, isn't it? You need it, I think, for anything part of life. It's like when you go away on holiday. When people say, "I go away, I need a holiday. I need a week just sitting by the beach." Some people say, but it's not for me sitting on the beach 24 hours a day. But some people, it's really good for them. It helps them when they come back, and they're really relaxed when they come back.
Yeah, it's simple. I mean, I suppose that's the line, the take. Give yourself a break. On all different levels, however you want to read that phrase, isn't it? It's give yourself a break. Take a step back. Give yourself a break.
I think that leads us on nicely, doesn't it? 'Cause I think, you mentioned that, yes, I think we're coming up to our sort of time as part of this sort of webinar chat. I don't know what we call it actually, because it's just a chat with three men about life and fertility, isn't it? And I think originally we said that we were going to do a sort of, potentially as we start to end it, sort of look at what's one thing we'd say. But I think and apologies to chuck this in, but you know, the theme of today is, or the theme of this conversation is surviving the world of fertility. Now, there's going to be hopefully a lot of men watching this that will take something from it. And I think, you know, as we said, it is all about sometimes surviving the journey and getting through with as best we can with the tools that we have and with the people that are around us. And now we can't give anybody any solutions. What people are going through is completely out of our control. We, you know, between the three of us, we don't have solutions, unfortunately. But what we can do is potentially give some thoughts on the topic of surviving the journey and maybe sort of end it in that way in terms of, you know, sort of we go around and what would we say, you know, what would we say to anybody that is going through this? You know, what's our sort of thoughts on getting through the journey and coming out still, you know, sort of as best we can. Let's leave it at that. I think as best we can. How does that sound?
Yeah, I'd say just don't give up hope. To always stay positive. Oh, everyone's still there. I thought everyone froze for a minute.
I'm sorry.
Everyone looked like they froze.
It's so
You know, I
intense.
lost you all. So yeah, give hope. Don't give up. I mean, we had on the fourth attempt we had. I mean, if you go for IVF, you might notice what we found from friends talking to them that certain if they got NHS funding, for example, they might not get good services if they're going private at the same clinic. So, we found on the third attempt, we were like, well, I complained and said, what are you going to change? Like, we know people are in the same clinic, they're getting different service. So don't be afraid to speak up. But like, well, yeah, our third attempt, I was like, well, it's not worked, and we were devastated. But we had to move on. And on the fourth attempt, again, we were a bit more relaxed. We were like, right, if it doesn't work, we're going to go private once, and then if that doesn't work, we're probably going to look at other options like adoption, stuff like that. And I think personally, being relaxed was probably the game changer. I mean, I did try different things with Mel, like medication, put on steroids and stuff. And I mean that they wanted us to do extra tests and stuff, but I said I didn't want to pay extra for something that, you know, failed 3 times. Why would you pay extra in a clinic when so they end up changing it anyway and putting her on different medications. So they changed things, and we had a successful. Well, so far we're now on 25 weeks, and we're expecting twins. I mean, so don't give up hope. Like I was shocked when it worked. I didn't expect it to work, to be honest. Like Mel did the pregnancy test that day, and I just wrote it off completely. I thought, well, we're going to go private and see what happens, get a second opinion. And she came over, she was crying. I said, why are you crying? Like, we would have gone through it, so why are you crying? And she was like, no, look. And I didn't want to believe it, but until I had the test, we went to the clinic 2 weeks later. So just don't give up hope. I mean, and don't be afraid to speak up. That's what I would say, take away from this. You're not alone. And I mean, I'm very lucky and very fortunate. I've been successful so far. I mean, all the way through, it never ends. Even if you are successful, you'll probably be told. I mean, I don't know anyone that's gone through IVF or fertility issues that have not had any, have not been scared ever, even when they've had like a child. Like, for example, we've like we were told all the way through we were probably going to lose one of the twins, and that's I mean, devastating. We were told one of them wasn't growing as much, but we stayed positive. And now, like on Monday, we went to the FMU unit, and they were more positive and said that the smaller one is now the magical. See, I didn't know any of this before. £500, £550. So they need to get them out early. They can get them out early. So just don't. So what the point I'm trying to make is just don't give up hope, even if you're struggling. I mean, I was, devastated leading up to it, and it affected me. But you just keep, I say, just keep moving forward, and as long as you've got hope, just don't give up. I've waffled on a bit here now. I'll keep quiet now. I'll let someone else talk.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
No, I'd echo. That's the thing, when someone goes first, they say all the good stuff, don't they?
Sorry.
But I'd echo what you say, that, you know, often people are very compliant in clinics and they don't speak up because they think, you know, these chaps, the consultants, are the experts. But I think do speak up. If, again, there's various things here. If you're going in with a partner and they're not paying too much attention to your sperm, or they're saying we'll just do ICSI, ask for more tests. Get your sperm tested. If they say there's you know, it's unexplained, get your sperm tested even more than what they've said. Go and see a specialist, urologist or andrologist, because sometimes, just sometimes, there can be something that is discovered, and it might be that you don't even need to go then through fertility treatment. If you're going through your own thing as a man in terms of various checks, tests, and all of that, I think we've all got our own way of coping. You know, you don't get to kind of into your 20s, 30s, 40s without developing coping mechanisms of some kind or another. So lean on those, see where they take you. You know, that could be a hobby that you've got. It could be socializing. It could be working. It could be training. It could be exercise. It could be lots of different things. Sometimes it could take you down a track that you don't want to go down a bit. You know, it could take people down working too long hours, or training too hard, or overeating, or drinking a bit too much, even when they would tell you not to. But lean on your own coping strategies. Yiannis said it really well. You're not alone. That was my line as well. I think there is really good support, good help out there. Go to the HIM Fertility website, email them, contact them. They can direct you to andrologists, urologists, specialists, counsellors. I'm part of BICA.net, the British Infertility Counselling Association, where we're all trained to support people going through fertility issues. So there is support if you know, and no counsellor is going to make you continue to come if you don't feel it's for you. You might want to dip in, dip out. You might find it was good enough one session to just offload. It might be that you've got a good mate, your best mate, who might be able to do that job for you, where you go down the pub or go for a walk. Just, yeah, don't feel you're alone. Be able to, and also do share with your partner, you know, as much as you feel comfortable. You know, don't be a martyr, and don't just keep saying, yeah, I'm okay, or I'm worried that if I share with you, that's going to tip you over the edge, because our partners are part of this as well, and they want to be there to support. So, and the last thing, I know I'm going to waffle on a bit like Yiannis, is just, as I said earlier, go to all the appointments, be there, be part of this, know when things are scheduled, know what medications your partner is on it, or what you're on, of course. You're in this together, if you're doing this as part of a couple. So yeah, that's my bit.
Thank you so much. And I think the advantage of going third is that there's probably even less for me to say. So I think I'll probably end mine with, you know, as I said at the start, I haven't got any solutions for anybody that's watching this. I haven't got any, you know, there's all the sort of look after yourself, do X, Y, and Z, but ultimately, recognizing that this is a really difficult journey, no matter where you are in the process. I mean, today's call has been fantastic because you've got three men, all at various different stages, that have been through various different things, but are united by the fact that we've been through it. Outcomes might be different and our journeys might have been different, but I think the one thing that is very common between all of us, no matter what we're going through with this kind of stuff, is that we've been through the same emotions at the same points, different points. And when we look at what the underlying emotions and how difficult they are, as we said, all the sort of the grief, the anger, the frustration, the hopelessness, the worthlessness, the scared, all of this, is sort of going through us at different stages. And to know that if anybody's going through any of this, that there isn't a rule book, there isn't a guide to how you should feel at what time you should feel it, and to know that wherever you are, that it's okay if you're feeling something, and that we're all here. That you're not on your own. There are support groups. As we said, we're here to very much talk, but to sort of signpost you to HIM Fertility Group. It is a monthly group where we meet, and it's just men that are going through various different stages of fertility journey. But we get together and we talk, and sometimes we don't even talk about fertility, because let's face it, the fertility journey can be spoken about quite a lot when you're going through it, and sometimes it's just nice to be around a group of men who are going through something similar, that acknowledge it, but also that we can talk about something else, that give you that break to talk about something else that doesn't involve it. But we're a big group. There's lots of us that attend, and although we can't give each other solutions, we can be there next to each other to just know that it's okay and that none of us are in this alone. So yeah, I think that'll be my final thoughts on that one. Before we start to close, Anthony, Yiannis, is there anything else you want to say before I sort of start to end us on the note?
No, just I'd say do speak out if you can, and speak to someone. I mean, even if it's a close friend, they might not know, but just speak out if you can. And yeah, you never know. Help is always there if you need it, and you never know, they might be going through the same thing and not told you.
Yeah, and I'd say with the HIM Fertility Group, not only do you talk, you also listen. You listen really well. Because it's online quite often, if you don't want to be seen, you can kind of have your camera off or have it be muted. And I think it's the listening bit as well as the talking bit is really comforting to know.
Thank you both. And, Yiannis, Anthony, so grateful for your time and input today and for everything else you do outside of this chat. As we said, there's a lot going on to try and support men that are going through this. And thank you to anybody that's watched this. Hopefully you take something away from it. Don't forget, there are loads of other national fertility awareness webinars that you can catch on the Fertility Network UK YouTube channel. And don't forget, there is always a HIM Fertility support group for any men that want to join. As Anthony said, cameras on, cameras off, change your name. Don't have to talk. You can just be there and be around other men that are going through it. And Fertility Network UK has got the support line for emotional support for anybody going through fertility challenges, and that's open Monday to Friday at 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And outside of these hours, you have always got Samaritans who are there 24/7 on 116123. And they're there for anybody that's struggling to cope, albeit fertility challenges, be it anything else. So hopefully, if you come away, one thing today is that the knowledge, as Yiannis and Anthony both said, you're not alone, and there is so much support out there for you for when you're ready to reach out for it. So that's it for the session today. Thank you, Yiannis. Thank you, Anthony. And thank you for everybody that is hopefully watching. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.